Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi guys, how are you? We are from group number 4. We'll present our work. These are the name of the member. First, Sabrina Rizkia Susana. Second, Auditia. And the last, Eva Erlanda. Journal number 1. Title: Software Hydroxy Development to Detect and Reduce Misconception Using Conceptual Chain Text Strategy on Salt Hydrolysis. Journal name: International Journal of Chemistry Education Research Vol 5. Author: Alvira Dewianti and Sukarmin. Year published 2021. Abstract: This research aimed to determine the feasibility of software hydroxy to detect and reduce student misconception using a conceptual change text strategy on salt hydrolysis. This research used the research and development method with third grade senior high school number 1 Korean student as a subject. The instrument used are student response questionnaire and student activity observation. Software hydroxy was developed using the Adobe Flash CS6 Action Script 3.0. The result analysis using the quantitative descriptive method are as follows. 1. Software hydroxy is valid with an average percentage of content validation is 86.67% and construct validation is 86.22%. 2. The practicability of software hydroxy is very practical with an average percentage of student response questionnaire result is 96.61%. 3. The effectiveness of software hydroxy in detecting and reducing student misconception is very effective, with an average percentage of students shift in conception from misconception to knowing concept is 86.34%. Chemistry is a branch of science with certain characteristics that are different from other sciences. Chemistry learns about the composition, structure, and properties of matter at a microscopic scale. Chemistry also learns about chain and interaction on the atomic scale to form a new material. Chemical materials have microscopic characteristics that are tangible to the eye, submicroscopic, tangible but invisible, abstract, and symbolic. Students have difficulty understanding chemistry due to the inability to visualize structure and process at the microscopic. Introduction: Chemistry, which is only learned at the macroscopic and symbolic level, makes students use memorization to overcome learning difficulty. Most of the students memorized each concept and did not understand what they were learning. Understanding abstract concepts requires formal thinking skill because there are no clear examples. Due to this ambiguity, students have difficulty linking concepts. Let an understanding that is not suitable with the concept is often referred to as a misconception. As with one of the material contained in chemistry, namely salt hydrolysis. The previous research done by Amelia show that 46% of students experience misconception about salt hydrolysis, especially in the symbolic aspect. Another research also reinforces these results show that students experience misconception in 1. Linking the notion of acid-base according to experts. 2. Determine acid and base. 3. Linking scientific knowledge with their knowledge. 4. Understand the scientific language in chemistry. 5. Using pH determination calculation. 6. Show a submicroscopic illustration of salt in water. And 7. Linking the effect of Ka, Kb, volume, and concentration in the salt solution. Students also experience the most misconception on the meaning of salt hydrolysis and the properties of salt hydrolysis. Conceptions are very dangerous if it keeps on happening. It will hinder students receiving and assimilating new knowledge to hinder students' success in the learning process. One of the instruments that can be used to identify misconception is the three-tier diagnostic test. The conceptual change test strategy is learning to change student concept because of the conceptual conflict faced in the learning strategy. In the conceptual change text learning strategy, there are phases that must be known, which are 1. Showing the student conception. 2. Creating conceptual conflict. 3. Equilibration process. 4. Concept reconstruction. And the process of curing misconception by means of CCT is more effective when using media because the result will be identified more quickly. Thus, it can be consulted that the detection and reduction of misconception with the conceptual change text strategy can run more effectively and efficient if it is done by using the software based on the explanation described. Research titled Software Hydroxy Development to Detect and Reduce Misconception Using Conceptual Change Text Strategy on Salt Hydrolysis was developed. Material and method. The research design used was the research and development method with stage 1. Potential and problems. 2. Data collection. 3. Product design. 4. Design validation. 5. Design revision. 6. Redux testing. 7. Redux revision. 8. Trial use. 9. Product revision. And 10. Mass production. However, this research is only limit to the with the following flow. To test the validity of the software hydroxy, two validation sheet, the content validation sheet and the construct validation sheet were used. The content validity is related to the correctness of the material in the software and the suitability of the question in the software for the purpose. Meanwhile, construct validity is related to the fulfillment of software requirement to detect and reduce misconception, compatibility of software display, and ease of language used in the software. Several studies on student misconception on salt hydrolysis have been conducted, and the result is that many students experience misconception on salt hydrolysis material. Misconception in students can cause student difficulties in understanding a concept. Software development for salt hydrolysis is carried out to detect and reduce misconception with conceptual change text as a strategy in the salt hydrolysis material from this problem. Software hydroxy trial was carried out on 50 students in 3rd grade of Senior High School Number 1 Korean. Student selection was carried out by doing a pretest to determine students who experience misconception, and 5 samples of students who experience misconception about salt hydrolysis were Student response data were obtained through a student response questionnaire on the software hydroxy. Data from student activity observation were obtained through student observation carried out by observer. The data on the shift in student misconception were obtained from working on the pretest and post-test question in the software hydroxy with the three-tier diagnosis test method. Result and discussion. In the first aspect, which is the clarity of the material and its relation to the increase in student understanding, the percentage result is 98.67%. This flow is included in the very practical category. It means that the salt hydrolysis in the conceptual chain text of the hydroxy software is clear and does not cause confusion to students. In addition, the material on the CCT software hydroxy also helps students increase their knowledge of salt hydrolysis. In the second aspect, the student interest in software hydroxy obtained a percentage of 92.22%. This flow is included in the very practical category. It means the students are interested in the software hydroxy. In the third aspect, which identifies the simplicity of using the software, the percentage was 97.78%. This flow is included in the very practical category. It means the software hydroxy is easy to use for the student. In the fourth aspect, which is clarity of the language in the software, the percentage was 97.78%. This flow is included in the very practical category. It means that the language in software hydroxy is clear, easy to understand, and does not confuse students. Conclusion. Based on the result of student response questionnaire, student observation activity, and shifting student conception from misconception to no concept, it can be consulted that the practicality of software hydroxy in terms of the student response questionnaire result support by the observation of student activity obtain an average percentage of 96.61%. With the very practical category, the average percent of 86.34% show hydroxy software effectiveness in detecting and reduce misconception in terms of the result of shifting student conception from misconception to knowing conception. Thus, software hydroxy is effective to be utilized to detect and reduce student misconception on salt hydrolysis. Reference: Alvira Duyanti, Sukarmin, 2021, Software Hydroxy Development to Detect and Reduce Misconception Using Conceptual Chain Text Strategy on Salt Hydrolysis, University of Surabaya.
Hi all, next year I will complete the review of the second journal review. Title: Study of Effectiveness of Pattern-Based Teaching Method on Student Long-Term Retention of Contents in Organic Chemistry. Journal name: International Journal of Chemistry Education Research Vol. 5. Author: Pokarna C.P. Baratia E. Year or published 2021. Abstract: Organic chemistry is a subject which seems difficult to study because of complex reactions and mechanisms involved. The main aim of this study to study the students' understanding of the concepts of organic chemistry by pattern-based teaching method. Pattern-based teaching is a systematic approach in teaching chemistry where the reaction and mechanisms are systematic in through a particular pattern for different functional groups. The students are made to understand the basic concepts, how to introduce a particular functional group and how functional groups give section with different types of regions. Introduction. Organic chemistry is a branch of chemistry which involves study of diverse organic compounds, their structure, scientific reaction, and mechanism of reaction. Organic chemistry has a revolution as a challenge course. This paper is based on pattern-based teaching method in organic chemistry which improves the metacognitive skill of students as it involves set and organize systematic pattern of action in organic chemistry which are otherwise hard to remember. This pattern-based approach provides a step-by-step guide to the student about direction, develops their thinking skill and action, their learning outcomes. Students view organic chemistry scientists as challenge because of their reliance on memorization of a large number of reaction rings and rules for conceptual understanding of the topic. In effect, that methods with like active learning and student engagements. In undergraduate program, organic chemistry syllabus covers different types of functional group, their scientists and reaction. It involves too many reaction and mechanisms which are difficult to memorize and students often get confused and are compared to rote memories. Hence, there is a need for a systematic method of instruction which makes the students better understand this reaction and facilitates them in learning this reaction. Chemical reaction follow pattern, and this pattern allow a student to predict the behavior of a chemical. Thus, understand of basic concepts of chemistry and mechanism along with pattern recognition facilitates students learning and kids in the subject. Material and methods. In the traditional lecture-based teaching methods, students can understand the basic concepts of organic chemistry. They are often confused and unable to remember so many reactions. Although the students asked in this study were all about appeared, we can see the low reaction of organic chemistry content by text simple of several students. Their answers are not clear which shows their lack of understanding of organic chemistry concept. We developed an innovative teaching methods which we call the pattern-based teaching methods in organic chemistry for undergraduate first-year students. In these methods, we plan to teach reaction in a systematic and specific pattern so as to create a clear picture in the minds of students. We proceed from simple reaction to violent reaction. Pattern learning reaction not only improve memorization and understanding skill but also develops students' creative thinking and problem-solving abilities. Control and discussion. It can be observed from the above table and graph that number of students of BCT Part 1 PGM girl is 13 and men is 7 phones 4 3 and BCC Part 1 TBV girl are also 13 and men is 10 phones 4 6 phones. It can be observed from the above table and graph that number of students of BCG Part 1 PGM boys is 13 and men is 10 Forms 3 and BCG Part 2 PGBZ boys are also 13 and men is 30 Forms 36 Forms. It can be observed from the above table that number of students of BCG Part 1 CBS boy is 30 and men is 30 Font 6 and BCG Part 1 TBC girl are also 30 and men is 10 fonts for 6. Conclusion. So, pattern-based teaching methods help students to retain information better than traditional lecture-based teaching methods. Therefore, it can be concluded that this method is a fruitful and systematic approach to better understand and study organic chemistry. It is therefore recommended that these teaching methods be used in teaching organic chemistry. The results of this study indicate that pattern recognition helps prepare students seeking skill and facilitate better understand and learning. Referensi Graduate Department of Chemistry India.
Hi all! Next year, I will convey the result of the third journal review. Okay, title Student Worksheet Development the Practice Critical Thinking Skill Using Blended Learning or Reaction Rate. Journal name International Journal of Chemistry Education Research Vol 5. Author Intan Munitasari and Berta Yonata. And year of publish 20 and 21. Next, abstract. This research aims to determine the feasibility of student worksheet to practice critical thinking skill using blended learning on reaction rate method. This research is using research and development design with the subject are second-grade students. The instrument used, which as the student worksheet, pretest, post-test sheet, student activity observation, and student response questionnaire. Student activities obtaining a percentage of 90% and observation of student response by 91%. The effectiveness of the student's worksheet in terms of the engagement score of the pretest and post-test with an average of 0.65. In the medium category, is very effective to practice critical thinking skill. So, the student worksheet using guided inquiry learning model and blended learning strategy in reaction rate method to practice critical thinking skill is feasible to use in high school. Keyword: student worksheet, critical thinking skill, blended learning, the reaction rate. Introduction. Chemistry learning must pay attention to the characteristic of chemistry as a process and product. Mass learning in school still use the lecture method. When teachers are the only learning method, students' critical thinking skill become less hard because students are not accustomed to thinking outside the context conveyed by the teacher and become passive in using additional learning sources outside of the learning resources provided by the teachers. Blended learning means a combination of face-to-face learning system with a learning that can be used by everyone, everywhere, and anytime. Use the wrong one learning models in the learning process can lead to saturation. understanding concepts, and monotonous, so that students are less motivated to learn. Learning models that suitable can use in this research in inquiry models. The inquiry learning models in learning that require students to solve problems through investigation activities that increase skills and knowledge independently. Both of them in the activity of the learning process and in the environment of everyday life. Students proceed using the syntax in the inquiry learning models, namely presenting phenomena, formulating problems, making hypotheses, collecting data, analyzing experiment data, and concluding what has been learned. The student worksheet will help them to understand the reaction method formed doing to simple experiment. Method. The methods of this research using descriptive analysis by research and development. Research and development is one process or step to develop a new product or complete a previous product. This research only developed until the 6 methods in product trial. The result of student worksheet validity, practicality, and effectivity analyzed by quantitative descriptive is this assessment from number and change to percentage on the step trial test of the product. The design used in this research in one group pretest post-test. Pretest test on the beginning class before each the student worksheet and post-test after the class finished. Pretest and post-test score is to know the result of the practice critical thinking skill of the student. Result and discussion. The benefit of research in the student worksheet can be used as an alternative in learning chemistry reaction rate material. The student worksheet can make it easier for students to understand the reaction rate material. As a medium for practicing student critical thinking skill and used as a learning media for rate material reactions in high school students. Validity. The validation result and content criteria consist of 4 aspects. Namely, the first aspect shows the purpose and inquiry of the material. The second aspect is suitability with the blended learning strategy. The third aspect is compatibility with the guided inquiry learning model, which consists of 6 stages. And the fourth aspect is suitability with critical thinking skill. Observation of student activities is used to find out which students carry out the strategies according to the guided inquiry learning models. The teacher becomes easier in guided learning with the inquiry stages because students build their own knowledge. Effectivity. The effectivity of student worksheet known by the score each student of pretest and post-test. From the figure, students can be trained to think critical using learned worksheet on reaction rate material based on the result of the pretest and post-test. It can be seen that students have increased from the pretest to post-test score. Based on table, there is an increase in every aspect of critical thinking skill. Blended learning strategies of increased learning independence and student critical thinking skill in the digital era. Conclusion. Based on the analysis and discussion, student worksheet can be declared feasible in they have validity, practicality result with a percentage of 61% and and the effectiveness of pretest post-test score again in category medium or high, so that the student worksheet using the blended learning strategy and the guided inquiry model are appropriate for use in high school. References: Novita Sari Irfan, Berta Yonata, 20 and 21. Student worksheet development to practice critical thinking skill using blended learning on reaction rate. International Journal of Chemistry Education Research Vol 5. Department of Chemistry Education, Surabaya State University. Thanks for watching. Hope it's useful. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye-bye.